Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sam. I'm a Biosecurity Fellow at Rosetta Commons. It's been my pleasure to put this together along with Ian Hayden at the UW Institute for Protein Design. Folks in this room are here because you're participating tomorrow in a workshop that's focused on these community values, guiding principles, and commitments for the responsible development of AI for protein design tomorrow in the same building on the 7th floor. Unfortunately, that very quickly reached capacity and then some, but we really wanted to take full advantage of this event taking place in DC. So there's a handful of folks who are involved in policy research or policy work that intersects with AI for protein design, and they're in the room tonight. Thank you so much for coming. As I mentioned earlier this year, I joined Rosetta Commons as a biosecurity fellow. It's a role that this organization didn't have before. Rosetta Commons is a consortium of labs that contribute to the development of software for protein design protein structure prediction and design. As of this year, there's just over 100 labs that are involved in the consortium, covering quite a large portion of the world. This role as a biosecurity fellow is pretty new. So I've been trying to figure out what that means for there to be a biosecurity fellow within Rosetta Commons and learning as I go. But some of what that has involved has been speaking at conferences, shadowing some researchers, including Fatima. She's not here tonight, but she'll be here tomorrow. I think she's taking a test, and hosting some roundtable discussions and workshops. Something that's really special about Rosetta Commons are these RosettaCons. These take place about 3 times a year, one that's in the summer, often in the state of Washington, one in Europe that just this RosettaCon took place in the past November. And in each of these events, there are about 300 people. I think European RosettaCon was upwards of 350, which is the most that I think RosettaCon has ever had. So the community is growing. And I wanted to show you just some snapshots of moments that I thought were particularly special at these conventions, where in the evenings, there's often poster presentations. And these have stood out in my memory because, as you can tell, it's actually so crowded that it's hard to walk through the aisles and look at the posters. And this to me is special because I don't know how you all chose to spend your free time when you were in undergrad or graduate school, but this is certainly not how I chose to spend my time. And I think it's incredible that this community has fostered such an excitement and interest in science and in excellence in science. The workshop tomorrow is going to talk about research conduct, and something that I wanted to share, which I don't think you get much visibility into from the outside, is that there has been so much work done within this community by people within this room to build good research practices in the community itself, or rather, build good conduct within the community itself. My previous role, I worked in AI policy for a few years, and I would describe that work as institutional design. And what I was really impressed by coming into this community is that there's been so much deliberate, ongoing effort into building these functions within this institution that instill good conduct. There's a code of conduct that everyone within Rosetta Commons knows, and they enforce it at the conferences. There's a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee that meets regularly, and they send folks to attend affinity groups. There's also this research experience for undergraduates, where they have undergraduates join in internships in labs within the community. And this, to me, is mind-blowing. I went to a small liberal arts college in the middle of nowhere in the state of Washington. These undergrads are learning how to train protein language models. This is something that I could not have imagined when I was an undergrad. So I guess I share this because I think that there's something really beautiful, happening within this protein design community. And I don't think that you really see that from the outside. But if you attend a RosettaCon, you see it and you feel it. And the goal of tonight is really to try to recreate the spirit of RosettaCon. Whereas tomorrow is more a day for the scientists, tonight is more so for the policy folks in the room to learn more about the science and about the communities behind the science. So tonight, I'm going to hand off in the moment the microphone to Andrew Hebbeler, who's the director of biosecurity at CEPI. CEPI was the provided a lion's share of the funding for the events over the next few days. It literally would not have been possible to organize this without him and without his team. So thank you, CEPI. It's been incredible. Mohammed Al-Qureshi from Columbia University is going to be talking about some of the history behind the protein design research in the community. Michael Chung-Yoon from Johns Hopkins is going to talk about some of the notebooks that are used that he and folks from Johns Hopkins University developed and that they've incorporated into educational curricula. And Clara Schroeder is going to talk about how some of today's protein design tools are being applied for vaccine development. Before I move on, I just want to say a quick thanks again to CEPI, without whose support this would not have been possible. Rosetta Commons also provided some funding. Jeff Gray is unfortunately not here teaching some lessons at UC Irvine, but would have loved to have been here. Rockefeller Foundation provided this space for the next few days. None of the folks who are in this room right now, they were at the coat check and welcoming you. They put so many hours into making this happen, so please say thank you to them. Open Molecular Software Foundation was a fiscal sponsor. There are a handful of think tanks, nonprofits that put their energy into figuring out the substance for this week. Helena, Sentinel Bio, Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, NTI Bio, RAND, and UW Institute for Protein Design. Thank you so much for all of your help. Also, special shout out to Shelby Summerfield, who's not here, but she's from an organization that helps organize events, and she took care of all the catering, which I would not have been able to do. I don't know how to choose food on a menu. So if you need help with catering in a future event, please call upon Shelby. And also Ian Hayden, my co-conspirator for the next few days, put so much time into this event and refused to be on the slide, but he deserves a big thank you as well. So thank you, Ian. And now, Andrew Hebbeler.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to start with some thank yous, partly because, I don't know about you, but it is freezing cold outside. There's snow on the ground. There's ice. And I thought, oh my God, a reception in DC, another one. No one's going to come because of the weather. And as I asked around, it felt like the hottest ticket in DC policy tonight. So just really thankful that all of you braved the cold DC winter to join us tonight for this reception. Also, just want to start by thanking Sam. He's been just an extraordinary engine behind the reception and the fantastic set of discussions you all are going to have tomorrow. And of course, the dinner and the brunch or the breakfast on Saturday. And none of this would have been possible without you. And so just deeply appreciative of all your efforts to put together this really fantastic session. And I also want to thank our partners. While CEPI, I'll tell you a little bit about us in just a second, had the opportunity to provide funding that has enabled this. It totally is a team effort, as you can see here on the thank you slide. And I think that's partly a reflection of just the diverse array of applications where AI for biodesign is going to have across a range of different domains. I think it's also partly a testament to something that for someone like me, who's been sort of at the center of a number of issues over the last 15 years, where you're trying to balance the science with the security considerations, it's also a testament to the novelty of the emergence of this technology, where at the outset, I think both scientists, AI developers, and security experts recognized we needed to be working in lockstep if we were going to unleash the full potential of AI for society responsibly. And so just deeply thankful to be a part of this effort, really from the outset, an outgrowth. I think I'm trying to find Linda. I know she's somewhere in this room. Where's Linda? Okay, of course, she's gone. The vision that University of Washington Institute of Protein Design, Linda and Ian and David Baker had in convening what has catalyzed this really meaningful set of interactions over the last year and a half that started at that October meeting, culminated in the March 8th principles, which are no longer on the slide. And now here, this set of interactions, which we hope is really aimed at translating the ideas, the principles into action, so that we know what responsible AI development actually looks like in the real world and in the laboratory. That it's not just these ambiguous concepts, that we know what responsible development looks, smells, and feels like. What I'll say just very quickly, so Sam mentioned I'm Andrew Hebbeler, I'm the director of biosecurity at CEPI. CEPI is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. We are a vaccine research funding organization. We raise money from governments and philanthropies and use that to support global vaccine research for epidemic and pandemic pathogens. A huge organizing principle of our organization is trying to give the world the capability to develop safe and effective vaccines in 100 days, basically building on the success of COVID vaccine development so that we can move toward an overarching vision where we have the tools to stop outbreaks at their outset before they become epidemics and pandemics. And vaccines aren't everything, but they're a part of that. And our organization is really committed to driving global progress toward the 100-day vaccine goal. A big ingredient in achieving that vision is, we believe, anchored in AI. And so we are leaning into investments in AI, not just in vaccine design, but across all of the capabilities areas from detection and early warning to, we don't really focus as much on that, but vaccine design, preclinical testing, clinical research, biomanufacturing, so that when novel threats emerge, we have the ability to very quickly design novel vaccine candidates, identify safe and effective products, and then produce them rapidly at population scale. And we know that if we are to really tap the full potential of AI, we have to be making these investments wide-eyed, clear-eyed, with an understanding of what the risks of misuse are and how we can build into the technologies as the AI technologies are developing, ways to ensure that we are wielding the good and minimizing into the maximum extent possible, preventing the potential misuse. And so that's why we're here. What I think you heard me say earlier, what I actually said earlier was that the whole point of today is to translate idea to action, translate principle to action. I'm sure many of you feel the same way as me in that there's this huge swirl of AI experts that are talking about ways to reduce risk, but I oftentimes find the conversation so high level and disconnected from like the practical doing of science that it's hard to actually know what, if we're talking about the same thing, but more importantly, what we actually need to do day in and day out to ensure we're developing these AI technologies responsibly. And so, this is really important to us at CEPI because we have been working over the last year to lean into our commitment to ensure that the research we're funding around the world doesn't inadvertently cause an epidemic or pandemic. And so we are actively working to strengthen our internal oversight of how we manage and reduce these kinds of biosafety and biosecurity risks. And the work that we're doing, the investments we're making here, and the practical, concrete approaches that hopefully are going to emerge throughout the course of our discussions over the next day or so, in our very just parochial interest, we can exploit and integrate into the new and stronger oversight processes that we're developing and implementing at CEPI. And so maybe I'll end there and then end where I began, which is by thanking all of you, just so awed by the diversity of and depth of expertise that's here, not just on the AI developer side, but also on the biosecurity side, and just really excited to see what emerges from these great discussions. And so with that, I think, Sam, maybe I'll turn it back to you to steer us through the rest.